This video is presented by Chesco Sports, your one-stop shop for sports betting content. See the link in the description. Yes people, what we saying? Welcome back to another breakdown video. Today I'm going to be doing a short breakdown of UFC Vegas 80 coming up this weekend. If you don't know, Steve is doing a live stream tonight at 7 PM Central Time, whatever time zone that may be for you, which he'll be running down the card and talking about his best bets, that sort of thing. So make sure to check that out tonight. It's scheduled on the channel. But yeah, I'm going to run through what my picks are for this card. It's just an extra video for you guys to have on the channel. Just an extra point of view, an extra opinion. But yeah, we'll run through the card. Obviously, it's taking place at the Apex. We had last week off, so it's nice to have a UFC event again. I mean, the week before we had that really disappointing main event between Gamrot and Fiziev, where Fiziev injured his knee. So hopefully this week we can avoid any injury, especially in the main event, and hopefully we get a couple of good fights. I mean, don't get me wrong, there is a few decent fights scattered down the card, but it kind of looks like one of just those typical Apex events where there's not really much going for it. There's a couple of decent fights that spring out on the page as you look at it, like Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. That'll be a fun fight. Bill Algeo versus Alexander Hernandez will be a fun fight. Even that Philippe Lins versus Ian Cutelaba fight could be fun. Philippe Lins is unbeaten so far at light heavyweight since moving down from heavyweight. Sorry. Matheus Mendonça, he's fun to watch. There is a few decent fights scattered here and there throughout the card. But yeah, I'm not going to do a little breakdown for all fights. I'll kind of just give my prediction for a few of them. And then as the further we get up, I'll kind of talk a bit more in depth about them. But opening up the card, we've got Montana De La Rosa versus JJ Aldrich. Montana De La Rosa is a slight favourite at the moment, which I think is fair. I do think she's the more well-rounded fighter here. I do expect to see her pick up a decision, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a close fight and see it be a split decision. I mean, I know JJ Aldrich herself has got quite a few split decisions on her record so far. I mean, just the two, to be fair, which is quite surprising, but quite a lot of decisions scattered around. So, I mean, 9 decision wins, 3 decision losses. Montana De La Rosa, on the other hand, she's got 5 decision losses, 3 decision wins, 8 submissions. So I do think here this one will be a decision, and I would favour Montana De La Rosa with that. Then we've got Johnny Munoz Jr. versus Arichi Leng in the bantamweight division. That's a fun fight between two very decent strikers. Johnny Munoz is probably the more unique striker, whereas I would say Arichi Leng is the more powerful striker in this one. I think he's got the power advantage. You look at kind of their reach and their height. Johnny Munoz Jr. has got a slight reach advantage, and I do expect him to try and stay on the outside in this fight and try and just jab his way through this fight and stick and move. And I would expect Arichi Leng to do the opposite, just try and get in the face of Johnny Munoz Jr. and try and close that distance with a flurry of powerful strikes. I mean, he's probably got one of the best nicknames in the fight game, the Mongolian Murderer. That is an insanely good nickname. I just love that nickname. I don't know why. I mean, it's a bit of a... I know I've just gone off track a little bit, but yeah. Arichi Leng is powerful. He is a powerful fighter. He's going to be looking to bounce back from the Ayman Zahabi loss where he did get knocked out. It was a great knockout for Zahabi. Before that, he picked up 2 wins against not the best sort of caliber of opponent. So yeah, I do expect him to try and be the one that's putting on the pressure and landing the big strikes. But I think I'm edging with Johnny Munoz Jr. here. I think he's going to be the more patient and the kind of... He's going to be the one that just stays out of range and uses his length to his advantage, and I do see him picking up the win. Do I see that being another decision? I probably do, to be honest. I would probably say that I'm gonna edge with a decision on that one as well. Again, though, he could pick up a submission. That wouldn't be out of the question. But I'm going to edge with Johnny Munoz Jr. there. The line at the moment, I'm pretty sure is a pick'em. I think it's a -110 either way at the moment. Yeah, it's near even, so maybe you think that Arichi Leng's the play here. Who knows? After that, we've got Vanessa Demopoulos versus Kanako Murata. I expect Kanako Murata to win this fight. I wouldn't be surprised to see her get the finish. I think Vanessa Demopoulos, if she kind of tries to grapple and control in that area, then she could kind of just see this fight out and just get it done there. But I see Kanako Murata being the one that wins this fight. And I'm not going to spend too much time on that one because it's a bit of a meh fight. Nate Maness versus Matheus Mendonça. Matheus Mendonça is a really fun fighter to watch. He's one of those Brazilian fighters that are just really, really fun. You know, the types of fighters that throw wicked kicks, wicked spinning attempts, that sort of thing. He's only 24 years old, so he's still young, and he is a fun fighter to watch. He fights out of Chute Box, which is obviously one of the most famous gyms in Brazil. He's the favourite here by quite a moderate favourite, -270. I do think that's fair. I think Nate Maness is he's on this skid at the moment. He's obviously going to be looking to break that skid. 2 losses. I mean, Umar Nurmagomedov is not a bad loss to have at all. Even Tagir Ulanbekov, he's a decent fighter. So those 2 losses aren't that bad. He's got wins over Tony Gravely and Johnny Munoz Jr., who both are good fighters. Tony Gravely, I was quite surprised the UFC let him go recently when they did. I thought that was quite surprising. I don't think that was the right. I don't think that was the right call to let him go. But again, I digress. I'm going on to different things that don't matter. But yeah, I do expect Matheus Mendonça to be the far better striker here, the faster striker, the more powerful striker. I do expect him to pick up the win. His last loss was against Javid Basharat, who is someone that I'm very, very high on. That being his first UFC fight after coming through from the contenders, that's such a tough fight to come in against. So yeah, I do expect him to pick up the win. I'm going to say he gets the knockout, and I will say that'll be in round 2. But yeah, I'm just going to say that he wins that fight. Karolina Kowalkiewicz versus Diana Belbita. Karolina Kowalkiewicz has looked quite good in her last few fights. She's looked good. Her striking looks to have returned to her old form, where she kind of lets her striking go. She looks fast and powerful. Obviously, she went through that phase where she picked up 5 losses in a row. I'm quite surprised she managed to stick around and they gave her a new contract. But then she picked up 3 wins on the bounce against not the worst opponents, like some decent opponents there. And like I said, in those fights, her striking has looked good. What are the odds for this one? I don't actually know the odds for this one. So Diana Belbita is a slight underdog. I think that's fair when you look at the fact that Karolina Kowalkiewicz's last few fights, she has looked really well-rounded. She's used her wrestling, used her striking, she's mixed it up a lot. So I do think the line is fair. Diana Belbita is a good fighter though. She has got a couple of good wins herself. Hannah Goldie and Maria Oliveira being the recent 2. I would probably edge with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, but as an underdog, I think Diana Belbita has got good value. I think there's good value in her as an underdog. I think she's going to be the faster of the 2. I know that I've just said that Karolina has looked good in the striking in her last few fights, but with Karolina Kowalkiewicz, you don't know what sort of Karolina's going to turn up, it's a bit of a concern. She could look really hesitant again, or she could come out and look expansive with her striking. I will edge with Karolina, but I do think there is decent value in the Warrior Princess at plus 165. If the line does get it any further towards Karolina and money starts coming in on her even more, and that line gets better, then I would probably play Diana Belbita by decision, to be honest. I think there would be decent value in that. I mean, I would play her by decision anyway, but if the line gets better, I would play her just as a money line, because I do think there's good value in her already. If it gets even better, then even better. The aforementioned Philippe Lins, who has picked up 3 wins on the bounce at light heavyweight since losing his last heavyweight fight against Tanner Boser. He's looked alright. He's looked alright. He uses a lot of fence pressure. Is what he does. He uses a lot of fence pressure, body locks against the fence, and just holds his opponent against the fence. You see that quite often in his fights. especially in his fights against Prachnio and Grishin. That was a lot of what he did, was just held his opponent up against the fence. Kutalaba's going to have the striking advantage here, I would assume. I would say that he is the more powerful, the faster striker. He is more erratic, there's no doubt about that. Kutalaba is quite an erratic striker. So there is always a chance he gets caught and finished like he has in these last 3 fights there. I think I'm edging with Philippe Lins in this one. I think he's probably the more patient and got the slightly better IQ than what Kutalaba has. You can get him as a slight underdog at the moment at +125, so there's decent value there in my opinion. I think, like I said, if he does do what he does best and uses his wrestling and his fence pressure, then he could make this quite a boring fight, but he could make it difficult for Kutalaba to get off the cage and get back into the centre of the octagon where he's going to be trying to land big shots. So yeah, I would probably favour Philippe Lins in this one. A 3-inch reach advantage as well, so Kutalaba's going to be trying to close that distance with those big shots. Could run into something from Lins, because there's no doubt Lins is a powerful puncher himself. I just think his advantage in this fight edges with the fact that he could hold Kutalaba up against the cage. Then we've got Senor Perfecto versus Alexander the Great Ape Hernandez. I'm edging with Bill Algeo here. I think he is the better striker. If he catches Alexander Hernandez early on, it's over. The fight's over. Hernandez has shown that if he gets caught early on, he just can't seem to recover from an early blitz or an early bit of adversity. He can't really recover from that. We've seen it quite often with him. Against Billy Quarantillo, that was a very good fight, to be honest, for as long as it lasted. Against Renato Moicano, the similar thing happened. He got hurt and couldn't seem to weather the storm. Bill Algeo's looked good. He's looked good when he's been on it. But the losses that he's picking up, they're against a good caliber of opponent. Like Andre Fili's a good fighter, especially his style. Those two styles collide, the two striking styles. Ricardo Ramos, who we know on his day can look very good. Ricardo Lamas, who is a big power puncher and can take a shot. So a lot of these losses that are coming up against like decent caliber of opponents. He's got 7 submission wins, 6 decision wins. If this does go to a decision, I'd be surprised if it did, but I'd favour Bill Algeo the further the fight goes on. Alexander Hernandez has probably got the power advantage here. He's probably a more athletic fighter, but I would say that Bill Algeo is probably the more patient and the more well-rounded striker in terms of being patient and picking his angles and picking his shots instead of just blitzing and throwing these power punches that I think Alexander Hernandez will look to do. I think he'll probably look to land those big power punches because of his athleticism, and that could get him into some trouble. I would probably favour Bill Algeo here, but it's one of those ones that I'd probably steer clear of because, like I said, Alexander Hernandez isn't a slouch. He can knock you out, so there is always that possibility. And like I said, Bill Algeo kind of seems to struggle putting wins together and going, like, kind of using his momentum. So this one's a bit of a banana peel for me. I would probably edge away from it, but I'd probably go over 1.5. I'd look at what that line is. I'd go over 1.5 maybe. Can't see a line for that at the moment, but yeah, that would be my pick for that fight. Drew Dober against Ricky Glenn. Again, it's not the most exciting fight. Heavy favourite Drew Dober is there, -470. He's going to be looking to bounce back from that loss against Matt Frevola, where it was a big knockout for Steamroller. I think he bounces back. I do think he bounces back. I think he probably picks up a knockout win. Ricky Glenn's only been knocked out once before, so it's going to take a lot for Drew Dober to knock him out, but Drew Dober's a big puncher, so that could happen. I'm going to say Drew Dober gets a second round knockout, but yeah, I'm going to say Drew Dober gets the finish regardless. This is a good fun fight, this one is. Alex Morono versus Joaquin Buckley. Alex Morono is someone that I've always been quite impressed with, just the way that his footwork and his movement and the angles that he creates is so fun to watch, in my opinion, because of those things. But then he's coming up against someone like Buckley, who is a very, very powerful puncher, a powerful striker, good kicks all round, just a very powerful guy. I think Morono's got the striking advantage here in terms of quality of striking. Obviously Buckley has the massive power advantage, so he could easily land one big shot that puts Morono out. Morono's got the advantage in the striking just because of mixing all those things up that I've just said. The patience, the staying on the outside, using his footwork, creating angles, all those things he does really well. He's a slight underdog though, and I would say that that's because of the power advantage that Buckley has. You see some of these wins here that he's picked up along the way. Against Ponzinibbio, he lost. Obviously, that was a late notice fight though, so it's hard to kind of take that into consideration. That was a late notice replacement fight, so that was one that kind of stopped this streak that he was on, which was a very good streak. Cerrone, Zawada, Mickey Gall, Semmelsberger, and then he rebounded from that loss against Tim Means with a guillotine choke. Buckley, on the other hand, he's looked good when he's been winning, like I said, with the other fighters. It's one of those ones where, you don't know what sort of Buckley's going to turn up. Is he going to look hesitant with his striking? Is he going to look fast and powerful? You just don't know. I'm going to edge with Alex Morono here. I think he stays on the outside, uses that footwork, creates good angles, and I think he picks up a win as an underdog. He's a good underdog pick for this weekend, in my opinion. Then we've got Joe Pyfer against Abdulrazak Hassan. The biggest fight for Joe Pyfer so far. Co-main event, it's a big spot for him this early on in his career. I say this early on in his career, meaning this early on in his UFC career. Obviously, since the Contenders last year, he was someone that came through Contenders and was kind of being targeted as someone that people were saying like could be a future champion, that sort of thing. And since his Contender Series win, he's gone on and looked good, but again, hasn't been against the most impressive opponent. Like Gerald Meerschaert is a good veteran, it's a good win to pick up this early on in his career, but not the most dangerous of fighters at this point in his career. Abdulrazak Hassan, on the other hand, he's looked good. Claudio Ribeiro is a good fighter. He's a very dangerous fighter, so picking up a win against him's a good win. A loss to Joaquin Buckley, split decision, which was close. Again, Abdulrazak Hassan isn't someone that I've been massively impressed with, so I do think Joe Pyfer kind of gets this one done quite easily. Not easily, I do think it could be a tough fight on the feet for him, but I do see him picking up a submission win, and I do see him extending this win streak and kind of going on to be a middleweight contender. And then we've got the main event, Grant Dawson versus Bobby Green. When this one was announced, I'm going to sound like a real kind of Scrooge all video, because I've said that this card isn't the best. It's not the most fun card. And this main event is one of the reasons why I'm just not that interested in it. Bobby Green versus Grant Dawson just isn't that exciting of a main event for me. I mean, but two good fighters, two exciting fighters on their day. But as a main event, it just doesn't do much for me, in my opinion. Bobby Green obviously is a very fun fighter to watch, a very fun striker. The way that he is in there, talks to his opponent, taunts his opponent, just the style of striker that he is always very fun. That win against Ferguson, again, Ferguson, you can't look at that as an impressive win because of the way that Ferguson's kind of regressed over these years. He's picked up a few losses, but again, you look at who they're against. Drew Dober, a big power puncher. Islam Makhachev, obviously, that just says everything itself. Fiziev, which was a very good fight. That was a really fun fight. If you haven't watched that fight, I recommend that fight as one of the ones you go and watch. I mean, maybe you're tape studying for this card, watch that fight, because you probably take a lot from Bobby Green from that fight, because he was in that fight for all 3 rounds. It was a close fight. Grant Dawson has looked good in his last few fights, beating Damir Ismagulov, who's someone that a lot of people were very high on in this division. Someone that a lot of people thought could be contending for the title someday, but then he went on and retired. He came back for this last fight against Grant Dawson and then retired. He's on a massive win streak, a win streak that spans back from 2016. So, look, he is a good fighter and he's very well-rounded. He's powerful, he's good on the ground, and that's where I see him getting this fight. I see him going to the ground and kind of trying to dominate on the ground. Do I think he's worthy of being this much of a favourite, -395? I wouldn't say so, but again, if he does get this fight to the ground, then he could look like a -395 favourite. There is a very good chance of that. But if the fight stays on the feet for as long as it might do, Bobby Green could start to look expansive with his striking, landing the better shots, taking one to give two, that sort of thing. So I do think that the line is probably too far, but like I said, if Grant Dawson gets this fight to the ground, then he probably would. He could look like a -500 favourite. I think he picks up a decision win, because I'm leaning on the fact that he will be able to get it to the ground, and that's where he'll be able to dominate for the whole fight. So I'm going to say Grant Dawson picks up a decision win. Don't think there's any odds for that at the moment. Maybe there is actually. Let me have a quick look on best fight odds. There's no odds on Grant Dawson by decision at the moment on best fight odds or Bet365, which is what I'll use here in the UK. I would expect it to be around, I wouldn't be surprised if it's around -150, -200 sort of odds. I don't think you will get great value on it, just because of the fact that Bobby Green's very, very durable. So if it does go to the ground, maybe he could pick up a submission. Maybe look at submission and decision as a double chance. I think that could be a good shout, depending on what the odds are for that. But yeah, I would expect Grant Dawson to get this done by either submission or decision. And yeah, that wraps up the video. Like I said, Steve is doing a live stream tonight at 7 PM Central Time, whatever time zone that is for you. So tune into that to hear what Steve's best bets are, what he's liking the look of for this card. Make sure to check out the betting guide. The link is in the description. You'll find plays for this card and any other UFC cards, any other mixed martial arts cards. You'll find NFL plays on there that Steve puts out. So yeah, check out that betting guide linked in the description. Check out Steve's live stream tonight and let us know who you're picking for the main event in the comments below, and I'll catch you in the next video.